rush kicked off. Rifters spread across the spur like wildfire.
All right, so a couple weeks ago, I mentioned a game called Tribes Ascend on the show. And actually, a lot of you guys have reached out to me on Twitter and said that you guys are loving the game, which is awesome. I think that's the most rewarding part of my job is when I can turn people on to games that they love. Now there's a game coming out for the PlayStation 3 called Starhawk that is kind of similar to Tribes. It's got kind of that vehicle base building kind of driven multiplayer. Bloodworth, you reviewed the game.
Yeah.
First of all, do you have a lot of experience playing games like this, and where would you kind of place it in that pantheon of games of this ilk?
Real quick, I think it's probably more like Plants vs. Zombies. It's like Tribes.
Yeah, well, I feel like the single player and the multiplayer are pretty different in that respect because the single player is more or less a tower defense game. You know, it's like they tell you that these kind of units are going to come in over here, and these kind of units are going to come over there. And
another game, by the way, that the single player was kind of eh. The multiplayer, obviously, the thrust of the development.
It's interesting because, yeah, the single player doesn't feel that meaningful, but at the same time, you're still better off playing the single player first because it teaches you, like, step by step, like, this is what this kind of structure does, and this is what this does. And so you essentially have an extended tutorial to really wrap your head around everything before you just like get on the battlefield and like you get in this team and like 16 players just drop in and they're like off and you're like, wait, what's everyone doing? What's going on?
What's my role?
I played the beta and the multiplayer beta, and yeah, it's very, very confusing when you're thrown into that. It's not even confusing, like you can see what you're doing, but you have no clue what actually is good to do.
Right.
Yeah, because you don't know where everyone's running off, you know. Yeah. So it's
and there's so much empty space for that we were talking about this. Some of the like the maps are good, but there is that kind of like, you know how like when people play basketball, you're never in the center of the court. It's always at either side. It seems like that's going on.
Yeah, I think that they probably could have
Sports analogy.
You tried. Good job.
They could have benefited from different maps for Capture the Flags because those maps work really well for the big zone battles. But yeah, Capture the Flag, you have these huge dead zones in between, and it's one thing to be able to just jump into a hawk and fly to the other side. But if you're gonna really do Capture the Flag, you need to have a team out there in a truck, and it takes a good while to trek it across that space.
One of the things that did come out that was kind of cool this week is the devs did confirm that they are releasing a truckload of free map packs for multiplayer. There will be paid DLC down the road, but they've said that the first batches are going to be totally free, which is cool. I only got the game yesterday. I started playing it last night. And unfortunately, due to a cat-related PS3 disaster,
oh no!
I'm booting it up. I'm going through single player, and I'm playing away, and all of a sudden, my joypad just dies. 6-axis just dies. I'm like, what the hell? It's been plugged in. I look, and one of the cats has chewed through the cable, so the thing hasn't been charging. So I need to go and get a new cable for 50 cents from somewhere. But I gotta say, I think you'd like the single player, given the tower defense. I mean, it does feel kind of old school. I like the presentation. It's very sort of like Western-y. I like that that mean, moody style. It does take a bit of getting used to with just pulling out pulling up the wheel and which things can drop. You can pull and drop down. It is a little glitchy. I mean, it does feel. I saw a lot of glitches in the single player because I haven't got online yet.
Really?
But yeah, I saw a lot. Graphical glitches. I'm shooting the guys who have been infected with the Rift energy, and they're like, and at the same time still shooting. Some of the collision detection was a little bit off.
I don't really remember seeing anything.
That's just what I saw from my very brief playthrough last night. But I think there's enough there for me to go back, and once my PS3's able, I think I'm going to enjoy this game. And I mean, I'm not sure about going online because,
How long before this game goes free to play? How many months do you guys give it?
Well, didn't the Killzone? Yeah, you can play levels 1 through 15 of Killzone 3 now, free to play. I don't know. Maybe it could happen.
Yeah. Well, I think that's interesting though because it's kind of insight onto their part from Warhawk that they're talking about they made all these maps. They're going to make all these maps free because it splits up the user base, and I'm sure it's going to have a decent community, but in the end, the people that buy a Call of Duty map pack are going to outnumber everyone that buys Starhawk.
Yeah.
So I can understand, let's keep everybody together You know,
Make
and
it
at
free,
least
sell the map packs.
that'll at least encourage more people to buy the game and get involved, rather than, oh, okay, well, you
Just
know, they've
setting
made
it up
these
to
maps,
die.
and then, like, you know, 20 people are trying to
Did
play
you see
on
that? Call of Duty Elite, 2 million paid subscribers.
I know.
I mean, one of the things we did discuss.
Crazy.
Wow.
I know.
I remember we talked at E3, and I'd liked Starhawk first time I saw it, and one of the things you said was that it didn't feel like a full price release.
Yeah.
And I can still see some value in that. I mean, it might have been something that perhaps, especially given Sony no support for this game,
I have
no
not
advertising.
seen a single commercial advertisement. There's no
Right.
ads on GT or any other websites.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than that. They shouldn't be putting it out there to die like that.
Oh, I agree.
I basically had to sort of like, beg, borrow, scream at a PR person to try and get this because I want to include it in one of the other segments. I do. So they've done with this what they did with Infamous 2. I mean, the only worst thing they could have done was release it on the first day of E3 with no ad support and anything. So I think they dropped the ball there, which sucks because Sony are normally so good on the marketing.
It's also the kind of game that can get people into PSN, and I feel like that's something Sony needs to concentrate on, is making people think about PSN as a community like they think about Xbox Live.
Definitely.
Well, the game itself has pretty crazy like guild stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
But nobody
They have
knows,
plans
right?
for
It has,
Yeah,
it has
plans.
options out
Plans,
the yin yang.
guilds,
Yeah.
teams, whatever.
It really has options out the yin yang, and it's one that I'm gonna I think I'm really gonna get into over the coming weeks when Diablo and Max Payne are out of the way next week.
So never.
Well, no, it's just one of those when there's a gap. I mean, when there's a gap, it's one I will go back to, and I'm sure I will enjoy over the coming months.
Bloodworth, who would you recommend this game to?
I mean, anyone that's into team-based multiplayer. I mean,
Not people who are into like Call of Duty though, right? I mean, it's not that instant
yeah, it's a little bit more of a
gratification every.
tactical. I mean, honestly, I think people that would join into a clan would benefit from it more, because I feel like just like random groups, like there's not like a good command structure. I think people need to take more lessons from MAG in terms of like building command structures that work well for the game, so you're not relying only on voice chat, because voice chat can be just a nightmare with everyone talking and everything. But if you have stuff where like you can have somebody that's played the game and they're like level 25 or something, like be assigned as a leader, and then they can say, okay, I need 4 people on defense and like 4 people volunteer and all this stuff. You kind of set this stuff up before you hit the battlefield. I think that would work a lot better for these kind of games than just everyone is jumping in and like hopefully cooperating.
Wasn't MAG kind of the same deal though? They kind of sent that game out to die.
Yeah, they.
It's like, why are they making these games if they're not going to support them?
I think sometimes they have games that they don't understand how to market. I think that is a big issue, because we know how, Killzone, Uncharted, no-brainers. But then there are certain games that come along that, are diamonds in the rough, and they just, what do I do with this? I mean, do I have a Nathan Drake? And it's one of those titles, it's not AAA, but it's not a B-grade title either.
Right.
And it's one of those ones that I think, needs a little bit of love and nurturing. And I mean, for example, had this come out on the PC, I could see a very strong community getting behind it very quickly, because it's right up their proverbial alley.
There it is, the Island of Dawn. Now we'll see some